the 4th of April 1984, Europe introduced milk quotas. In the case of the British dairy farmer, we had to reduce our production by 10% overnight. That day I was in Oxford buying cattle, and I'd just finished buying another 100 head of in-calf cows and heifers to bring home to sell, and all of them had to be slaughtered. We had to reduce our own milking herd by 10%. This left us in a position of looking at bankruptcy, to be honest. We were in serious trouble. The early days of the Milky Way really was that we were desperate to find a new source of income. Christine had had this idea just before we opened that the public would like to hand milk a cow. And I poo-pooed the idea and said, don't be so daft. It took off, it was instant success. Everybody wanted to milk the cow.
Trevor Stanbury positively encourages holidaymakers to come and see a dairy farm at work.
What a machine can do, you can do. This is Daisy. She's 14 years old, and apparently she doesn't mind being milked by someone as inexperienced as me. Good old Daisy. Good girl.
Of course, that did us a world of good, going on Wish You Were Here. You can't buy that sort of advertising. And it just gave us a lift and a push. I discovered the big difference between this and farming. Farming, someone else decided how much money I could have. With this, I decided how much money my product was worth. 2-3 years in, a cousin of mine, Pat Piddler, who hadn't got a tooth in his head and refused to wear false teeth, and he said, my side of the family's never thrown anything away for several generations. 12 vintage tractors, 2 vintage cars. He had a story with each one. Oh, that was the pig salter thing, and I remember we carried Uncle Sid out of the orchard when he died on that. We got a blackboard out and we thought, what are we going to call this thing? Well, it's got to be the Piddler Countryside Collection. They walked in and burst into tears. And from that minute on, it was his. The big accident had to stop being a big accident. We added more and more things to it. We had the Linton to Barnstaple Railway set up here, which ended up being opened by Sue Pollard. Got rid of the cows, put in the big indoor adventure play. Our indoor adventure playground was built for adults so that families could actually play together. And really that has been the theme of the whole site ever since.
It was actually 28 years ago last week that we came. I think what struck us so much the first time was the fact that the adults and the kids can play together. The adults don't have to sit around the edge and just watch the kids. You can actually get in and all have fun.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, that's all they've been talking about since we got here on Thursday, was coming to the Milky Way and going down that vertical drop slide. And then, of course, when we first arrived, of course, the joke was that the biggest one, who's like this ex-army boy, goes down on his skinny little uncle's knee again. But, of course, no, we can't do that.
We had the opportunity for a bird of prey centre, which provided 2 shows, one in the big theatre indoors in the morning and one outside in the afternoon.
And I had a phone call from Trevor, I think it was New Year's Eve 2001, and he asked if I wanted to work here. And of course I dropped everything and yeah, I would have sold my grandmother for this gig. You know, it's a brilliant place.
We added an archery centre, an indoor roller coaster, which we called the Clone Zone. We turned it into a spooky experience. It's now turned into Ziggy's Blast Quest.
Your mission is to hit as many of the incoming asteroids and meteors as possible and return to Earth Base Zero.
We have an outstanding rides manager who said he could get it to operate as a slow-moving ride.
We repurposed it, we recycled it, I guess. The manufacturer actually made the doors both sides, so that gave us the ability to be able to use the left-hand side and make it different. So the pre-ride experience, we stopped using that. People used to walk around and people used to scare you, so we took away the pre-ride experience, and now you load from the other side, which opened this big space up the station, opened up, which gave us the ability to be able to make it look like a spaceship.
Please remain seated on your cyber scooter throughout your mission.
Dodgems. Wow, this is me as a kid, because where did I go when I went to the fairground? Straight to the Dodgems. Although we sold the cows and sold the milk quota, we didn't do away with the Pets Corner, which was the lambs and the goats, bottle feeding and that sort of thing, because they were so popular. But the next big thing to be thrown in our way, of course, was the foot and mouth disease. The foot and mouth disease actually closed the park down because the animals were still here. So we had to make a decision. Could we afford the risk of this happening again? So we sadly sold all the animals and moved forwards into stability with the adventure park. And a little later on, we had a young guy called Merlin who'd been on Britain's Got Talent.
Did this gig at a nightclub in Exeter, and I drove up there the next day, slept in the van, drove up there, and I literally walked into the hotel room and I hadn't got any idea what to wear, and I just had this really long sheepskin sort of thick coat and those skimpy little boxer short running shorts on and this diving helmet, and everybody in the room just looked at me and what is that guy doing? And then they got me in, then they said, like, what do you do? And I just said, I escaped from 10 meters of chain and juggle fire, holding my breath underwater. And they said, we love it, we want to see you do the act. Amanda Holding came here afterwards to the Milky Way and watched my show, and we went on the roller coaster together. Yeah, she was really cool actually, she's a nice lady.
We've been really lucky that staff from the start has not been a problem here. You know, I used to run a lot of my business on sayings that my mother brought me up with. Don't forget, thank you costs nothing. And you should show appreciation to people that work for you. People who are enjoying their work most of the time, enjoying their work, and they're working with family, because the family are always on site. We're always working with them.
Trevor would be doing everything. So he would be talking to the customers. He would be covering a lunch in the early days, but he would also be the person who's cleaning the toilet. And from my perspective, when I've got a winter breakdown, when I'm taking all my rides apart, the man who's paying the bills is there beside me, working with me. And I think that creates a great ethos, because he's always said, you never ask anybody to do something that you wouldn't be prepared to do yourself.
He's in his 80s and he's out there shoveling up 20 tons of concrete and scalpings into the wheelbarrow, into the loader. And I said to him, you need to slow down a bit, Trevor, you know? And he's like, nah, the day I slow down is the day I die, you know? He's just a proper grafter, you know?
He's like a father to me, and not just to me, like, you know, all the staff here. He watches a lot of the shows out there, and you can see at the end of a good one, gives me a little thumbs up, you know, and that, you know, I know I've done a good job, days like that.
He's like a dad to me, another dad, granddad, whatever. But yeah, he comes down here, he cuts all these to make sure that they look pretty for the wedding, cuts the lawn, waters everything, but he also comes out at like midnight every Saturday night to check on me and Nigel to make sure that we're okay, and we've had no problems, and thank us for what we're doing, which is lovely. Because they knew my mum and everything, they've always said that they would, you know, look after me like family, and they have.
It always amazes me the number of big businesses I see where they don't give a what about their staff, and they're missing such a wonderful opportunity. Well, I suppose my proudest moment was when I was awarded an MBE for services to tourism. Went to Buckingham Palace to receive it. So you get down to the door, and this blonde-headed young chap, checking everybody's name, he said, Trevor Stanbury, aren't you? Yeah, Trevor Stanbury, yes. She said, I know you. He said, you've got a picture, I'm on this year's leaflet, coming down the death slide. The orders were, right, when he goes 3 steps forward, hold out your hand, he will shake it and then say a few words. You will know when he's finished, because he'll hold his hand out. So anyway, suddenly go, oh, you're building a village, holiday. God, I've got a village, you know, down there. Oh dear. And Tara's at the back, she tells me afterwards, saying, I'm going to have to go down and dig farther out. But it wasn't me at all. He just kept going and going and going. So I couldn't go because he wouldn't let me go. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Through the course of this, we've had to face adversities that have been thrown at us. Milk quotas, the big foot and mouth disease, and then there was COVID. This was a challenge over and above anything we'd ever faced before. I think one of the saving graces of us and the COVID disaster was the fact that, having treated the staff here as family, we were able to get together and formulate a plan. We would have to dramatically reduce the number of people to come on the site. Although we needed the money, we felt it was far more important to look after the safety of our staff and the general public. And as we moved on in, disaster hit. My son Martin had this enormous stroke, and the surgeon said, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm afraid you'll probably never walk again. But he's a very strong, determined character, and he does now walk with the aid of a stick, and he is determined to get back to the love of his life, which is golf. one handicapped golfer, and he's determined to get back there again. Over the years, we've now faced so many obstacles that I'm sure for many businesses it would have floored most. We made it through, and we're so proud of the way our staff and everybody has pulled together. The icing on the cake has been, we've been recognised for multiple awards over the last few years, and this year alone we were awarded the best large attraction in Devon, followed by the second best in the whole of the Southwest. Something to be really proud of. Well, I have to sum up life. It just makes me wonder as I stand here looking out over the roller coasters and the buildings, where we've come from. Another one of my mother's old sayings, she was full of old saying, was, if one door closes, another will open if you push hard enough. Don't despair, just push a little harder. "40 years, believe it or not, a momentous time in the life of the Milky Way.
You have all made the nice list! Ha ha!